All right, and I got it all in there. Yeah, I think guitar's so long. G'day, hey, hi, and welcome. Okay, this is gonna be one of those talking videos, and this is kind of a response to Rick Beato's how the music industry sucks now. Our music is getting more terrible. I've watched enough of it to say that he did make some really good points, and like clone bands and stuff like that. But there's really the funny part about what he was, and obviously, like music being so easy to make, anybody can do it, and he got a lot of mixed emotions on that video. And I thought I'd jump in on it. Not that because everybody knows who I am and my opinion is so valuable or whatever, but just, some things that I would critique in the sense of, yeah, but did you consider this? Now the obvious is the people out there that are really good musicians, and they are taking advantages of the it's easier to make music now more than ever and stuff like that. But like Rick Beato was talking about, like miking an actual drum kit versus using plugins. The plugins are not necessarily easier, because you gotta, if you're just taking like what you call it, like full drum, already organized for you, like click and drop, drum patterns. Sure, yeah, that's pretty easy. But if you actually have to digitally start from scratch and make drum beats, I mean, that it's easier to probably learn how to play drums, mic them up, and just play it and record it that way, because like that's a whole different skill level. Now you're going from like a sound engineer to like a basically a programming engineer. And so there is advantages with that. But like, for example, let's say there's people that, okay, I don't have a studio or anything like that. It's just my room here where I've got these extravagant instruments and stuff like that. But the thing about it is that if you're looking at my room, okay, and you look around the room, you're gonna notice one thing. There's a lot of money in this room. I'm not bragging or anything. I'm saying there's a lot of investment. So in that sense, no, music isn't. It's still not that cheap to make. I mean, the guitar right in front of you is a month's wages. You know what I mean? Like it's that drum kit in front of you is going to take me a year to pay off. It's 2 months wages, almost three, for me. You know what I mean? Like that's a very expensive drum kit you're looking at. And I'm not telling you that because it's check out what I got. What I'm telling you is that there is an investment on behalf of the musician. So just the musical gear in itself is a feat. I mean, just to be able to get that, especially for the younger people nowadays, where there's really, like let's not get started on all the problems they have, right, with the bad economy and all that. And the one thing that he said was, like, yeah, clone bands have always been a thing. Like that's not new. That's never been new. I don't think it'll ever be new. It's just, it is what it is, right? Ugh, I can't get comfortable here. Oh, sorry. And you're always going to be dealing with the clone bands, but not all the clone bands are bad. But this idea that they're, the music is just sterile and stagnant. I don't ever remember a time in my life where I didn't hear somebody talk about how, oh, the older music just had so much more feel and it's so much more groove, and everybody was so much more talented, and I don't ever remember part of my life, and I'm 51 years old, and I just don't ever remember not hearing somebody complain about that. But then, 30 years down the road, all these songs that were so horrible and bad, everybody's still dancing to them or listening to them because, oh, hey, the retro song, I missed this song. It was such a great time in my life listening to this song. And it's just like, okay, music hits plateaus all the time, right? So if we go back to the 1930s, 1920s, 1930s, you had like jazz music. Everybody sounded the same. You know, it was like, oh, well, everybody was so much more talented and everything. But back then, people was, oh, oh, great, another trumpet player. You know, another brass band, great. You know what I mean? You know, another jive band, great. You know what I mean? But it was the music was still enjoyed by the people. You know, you know, whatever was catered to the masses at the time, whether it was country and western or jazz or whatever, blues stuff. You know, like it was no different than now. Like Robert Johnson. Okay, we'll use him for an example. How many people? How many Robert Johnson clones were there after him? You know what I mean? Like too many to list. You know, and stuff like that. Buddy Guy, BB King. You know, Chuck Berry. Oh, Robert Johnson this. Eric Clapton. Robert Johnson this. Robert Johnson that. Right, and nothing wrong with Robert Johnson. He was definitely a trendsetter. Jimi Hendrix. Robert Johnson. Right. But now compare Robert Johnson to all those players. Robert Johnson is definitely not Jimi Hendrix. You know what I mean? Robert Johnson is definitely nowhere near the level of Eric Clapton, right? And I'm not saying that to be insulting or anything. It's just you know, at the time, like Eric Clapton wasn't possible at the time of Robert Johnson. You know what I mean? Now, Eric Clapton, as great as he is, he's a phenomenal player. Uh, Eric Clapton is not Tim Henson. You know, Tim Henson, whether you like the playing or you don't like the playing, is not the issue here. That style of player couldn't exist back in 1982, let alone back in the 1960s. So is music really getting worse? I don't think so. I was watching guys like Michael Beato Angelo versus Chris Impatelleri. I can never say his name, but those guys, Ingve, those three guys were probably the three fastest guitar players of the 1980s and 1990s. I don't think there was any guitar players that could play faster, particularly than Chris Impatelleri. That guy is just watching him shred on like a Stratocaster. It's like it's mind-boggling how fast he is. You see, yeah, but there's no feel in the notes and stuff. Listen again. These are neoclassical passages that this guy's doing, right? Ingve, you know what I mean? How many guys did Ingve inspire? Like Ingve was definitely a trendsetter. You know, like he basically is the trendsetter for guys like Chris Impatelleri and stuff like. You know, he's just a notch ahead of those guys coming out. So like people are, you know, Ingve is a perfect example of, you know, Ingve can't play Tim Henson. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't do that, right? But Tim Henson will never be Ingve. So who's gonna, and like the kids now, they're gonna be inspired by like Tim Henson, Robert Johnson, Ingve, Eddie Van Halen. The list goes on and on and on and on. So is music really getting worse? I mean, I watched a kid playing Jason Becker, Serena arpeggio sequence, and I've been trying to learn a bit myself. More learning the arpeggios in it rather than the entire sequence. But Jason Becker, I mean, that kid, I mean, God rest him. I mean, what he was 15, 17 years old, and just listen to the stuff that kid was playing in the early 90s, late 80s, you know, about the cacophony stuff. It's nuts. You know what I mean? Like but that music couldn't exist in the 1970s. It just, you know, it wasn't there. So are we getting worse? Now I'm using more metal players as you know, examples. I'll wrap this up pretty soon. What am I doing for time here? I should brought my glasses. I can't see nothing. But anyway, I'll wrap it up about here. No, I don't think the music is getting worse at all. I think it's the opposite. I think it's just changing. That's all. So anyway, I'll make a part two.